Hello folks, today I'll take you through a little journey on building a rat bike, kind of from scratch, but you have to see what I started out with. The worst motorcycle in the nation, I would say. Come on, let's go check out my little journey. Hey folks, welcome to the Dark Hollow Garage. So what you're seeing here is just an absolutely molested 1971 Harley Sportster mixed with I don't know what year. Looks like Yamaha Virago. Now just feast your eyes on that for a second. Good Lord. Okay, so this is my first version of it after I bought the bike and tore it apart. I used whatever cobbled up frame they had and did what I could with it just to give it some actual character, attitude maybe. I have pictures of this build somewhere, but I cannot find them at the moment, so we'll carry on with the build I'm intending to show you. First things first, we got to tear this thing back apart completely, 100%. Whoever built the first green version butchered the factory foot peg mounts, so I'm going to have to cut it out of a frame and replace it. First thing I did was weld braces in place and measure everything off and get it ready. I put steel slugs inside the tubes, had holes drilled to do the welds, and got her finished up. And there we have it. The frame is ready. A mechanic at Harley was building his own bike. He didn't want these wheels and he was going to throw them away. I said, hey, I want those. And he gave them to me. I found an old Springer on Craigslist back then and have to do a lot of repairs to it to make it roadworthy. So here we go. Had to replace those old rotten bolts that were underneath the spring. There was a little more to fixing the front end, but this is the only picture I have of the finished product. So now it's time to mock it up a little bit, see how she's going to look back in the back corner of the garage. A few quick mock-ups here of what we're going to have. With the handlebars, the front end, got the tires mounted, and the seat that I made. Building my own front axle in the lathe. Gonna need an oil tank, but I gotta fit it in this weird area here. So it's time to fabricate. So I spent one of my weekends with a piece of firewood, round log, and a rubber mallet, and a welder. We got it put together. This picture's a little ahead of the time frame, but that's how that oil tank fits in there. And here's the heart of the beast, a 71 iron head. Here's a quick shot of the Springer front end that I rebuilt. We get the rear wheel, brake, and fender configuration figured out. We get the double tail lights fastened on with the fabricated bracket, and we're working on the exhaust to get it set up. I got my hand shifter I made installed. Starting to look like a motorcycle here. Still fabricating though. We get our brake master cylinder figured out. Now normally this is on the right side of the bike, but we had to fabricate it to be on the left side on this particular build. Here's a few pictures of my seat that I made when I first redid the bike. Made it out of a leather vest and used the foam from the Virago seat. We're pretty close finished with the fabrication here. So it's about time to tear it back apart and at least get the frame painted and start assembly. Now the frame's all painted and we're ready to start assembly. We've got the motor in. Now it's time to make this thing into a motorcycle. Now we have our headlight that was free. Got my tank where I made the filler neck tall on it installed. Starting to come together. This is where it starts getting a little involved. Because now we have to start doing all our wiring. We have to get our electronics figured out, get everything fitted, installed, figure out where it's going to go, and get our oil lines plumbed, and it's starting to get interesting now. So we figure out where we're going to put the coil. The battery goes in its tray down there where it's supposed to be, and if you look on the starter there, that's a piece of feeler gauge. I use that to cross the solenoid to fire the bike up. And we have the oil lines. Now in this picture, we have the oil lines run up to the tank. We have the regulator in place, and we have some plumbing there with a handle on it that you turn the oil on with. Now it's a little weird, but you have to turn the oil on because the previous owner somewhat butchered the check valve on the oil pump on this motor. So it would sit there and it would wet sump on me. So I had to put an on-off switch thing there on the oil line. We have our tank install figured out. We have our new Pingle petcock down there below. Things are starting to come together. We replaced the old carburetor with a CV carb, figured out and fabricated mounts to make it work on an iron head. We've got our new air cleaner installed, and you can kind of see my shifter configuration because the 71 Sportster was a right-hand shift, not a left-hand shift. So at this point, we're almost ready for a first test drive, but we're going to be riding a bike that has a right-hand shift on your throttle hand. You have to shift. You're going to have to brake on the left side, which is not normal on a motorcycle. Things are going to get interesting. So if you look at the air cleaner here, that's actually the first one that was on it. I got mixed up in my timeline here with the other air cleaner I just covered and that CV carburetor. I didn't have those on it when I first built it. That came later. But this photograph right here, I was about ready to pull it out of the garage and take it for its first ride. And the lead mechanic from Harley called me up and says, "What are you up to?" I said, "Dude, I got the bike outside. I'm fixing to ride it." He said, "Oh my God, don't ride it yet. I want to come over. Hold on. Just hold on." So when he got there, he snapped this picture. In this picture right here, now this is when I just got back. Yep, I rode it for the first time. And it actually handled good. I was a little bit worried about the front end on it, if it was going to feel real heavy or anything, and it went down the road nice and smooth. So this right here was the victory photograph, I guess I'd say. Now I've been riding her to work pretty much every day. Few changes here in this photograph. If you look at the sprocket on the transmission, I cut that cover to kind of cover the sprocket but still expose it. We got a few little changes in here, but so far so good. I'm really enjoying the bike. It's been pretty fun. So it's been, I don't know, probably about 3 weeks, maybe even a month, and we've been riding it pretty steady, enjoying it. Only keep about 5 pounds of air in that rear tire since it's rigid. Doing a little errand here in this photograph, and then on Fridays after work, Friday evening, we would pop over to a place called the Brewery, have us a few beers, relax on a Friday evening after a long week's work, chilling with the bikes, and people would walk up to it and be taking pictures of it. In this photo where it's sitting now, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. So now that we've been riding it for a while, the old coil crapped out and we got a new coil and fitted it to the bike, and everything's working good. Okay, so now this thing's starting to take me to work every day, ride it on the weekends, you know, run over to, what's that place over there, Del Rey, I forget, Barbarossa. Would ride over there, sit by the river, have a few beers and some hot wings. But I was reading a magazine during all of this called The Horse Magazine. So I had this crazy idea. I wonder if I sent pictures into this, if I could get maybe into readers' rides. So I sent it off. I didn't hear anything for about a month, and I got a reply. This picture here was one of the ones that I sent in, and I don't know if it was because of the Mustang in the background, but it was the picture they chose to actually be in the magazine. And I gave them a little write-up, you know, in the email of putting it together, and sure enough, it got published. So I kept checking the old magazine stands, waiting. And I think it was March. This might have been March of 2011, I think. And there's the magazine. And I was just, I was, it was like, what? It really made it into the reader's rights? Oh, I got to look at this. And because of the article that I wrote in about getting so many free parts for this motorcycle part or build, they called it Free Parts Galore. And there it is in the center of the page. And I just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. One of our customers at Harley also read this magazine, and he saw this, and he brought his magazine in and asked me to sign it like I was some kind of celebrity. He said he never knew anybody that had a motorcycle in a magazine before. And here's a picture of one of the last times I ever had it out. It turns out the guy that bought my rat truck, my 46 Chevy black one, he saw this bike and asked me if it was for sale. And I thought, well, I'm trying to start my business. He bought the black truck. Yeah, okay, buddy. I'll sell it to you. So that's about it. There's quite a few pictures not in here on this video, but that's my quick story of my rat bike build. I kind of miss it. I enjoyed having it sitting here in the garage, even just to look at it, you know. I didn't ride it much after the first couple of years, but it was a fun bike. It was a fun build, really. Had a good time figuring it all out, how to put it together and fabricate stuff and make stuff work. So, well, I appreciate y'all coming in, and I'll catch you next time.